know, nonstop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Yeah, welcome in here on a Tuesday night. It's Mackie, Judd, our executive producer, Declan, and our friend, Realistic Randy. Find him on his own YouTube channel. Thanks for hanging out with us, and thanks for watching us on a TCL TV, if that is indeed what you guys are doing. Supporting the show, TCL is one of the world's best-selling consumer electronics brands, has a new lineup of award-winning TVs delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution, all at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. Judd's got the surly. Randy is probably not as surly as he has been in previous weeks after back-to-back wins. Let's turn it over to Realistic Randy. What is on your mind tonight, sir?
Well, I did say last week that if the Vikings managed to beat Green Bay, that I would entertain the idea of, okay, maybe they can flip their season around. And I don't know if that's going to be the case, but it's certainly in their favor to do so after these last two games. Because the Vikings are now embracing, through play on the field and PR for that matter, they're now embracing an aggressive passing offense. The last two games, Justin Jefferson, 21 targets. Kirk Cousins, he's playing like a top 5 quarterback and could very well end up in the MVP conversation. And looking back at last week's game against Green Bay, Dalvin Cook, he wasn't spectacular. 3.9 yards per carry, 86 yards. The offensive line played very poorly. The defense was kind of strong. They started the game off strong, but then ultimately gave up 4 straight touchdowns to end the game. So under those circumstances, paired with the old conservative, timid style of Vikings football, the Vikings lose that game 10 out of 10 times, but they didn't. And credit starts at the top with the head coach, Mike Zimmer, who he's a very prideful man. And I'm sure it took a lot for him to say, okay, the way that I want to win football games is not working. And I'm sure that the public bashing from his own players, Adam Thielen, Kirk Cousins, and in the case of Adam Thielen, also his agent, I'm sure that pushed Mike Zimmer to flip the script with that. But however, whatever led up to that, it doesn't matter because now he's doing it. Because publicly, he's giving the attaboys to his quarterback and his offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. I want you to go out there and win the game. Kirk Cousins, if you throw an interception, who gives a damn? Think about that. That's a complete 180 of what we know Mike Zimmer to be, especially with what he was saying about Case Keenum in 2017. I don't know what's going to happen. There's still 7 games left. And historically with this franchise, I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. But in this specific criteria, this box, Mike Zimmer has checked it off, and he deserves a ton of credit for that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think the thing is, though, I went into the game against the Packers on Sunday saying, let's see if they keep the formula that they used against the Chargers, because that's the key thing. And they did. So now I think the expectation is that this is somehow, and I think we're all amazed because I didn't see this one coming, but this is the new normal for this team, which is great and which gives them a chance. But now it becomes San Fran, which, by the way, has won 3 of 4, is playing well, and loves to run the football. And the news that came down today after we got done with Boone is the fact that Dalvin Tomlinson is now in the COVID protocol. And if he was close contact, so we don't think he's vaxxed. If he's close contact, it's at least 5 days. If he doesn't show symptoms. If he shows symptoms, it becomes 10 days, and then he can't play for sure against San Fran. And you wonder at what point, too. Like, I love the fact that this team has had to, and has at least the last 2 weeks, embraced the potential for shootouts. Like, we're gonna have to score a ton of points, boys. But you do wonder where it gets to a point, especially for a run defense, which is not good, where it's too much, because Tomlinson was left, Hunter's gone up obviously on the left end, Pierce is gone at nose tackle. If Tomlinson's gone now, Richardson, who played some end and some DT against the Packers, almost certainly is going to have to shift inside full time, which means Griffin is going to have to play more. So in some ways, it's interesting because it does take you down the path of you have no choice now but to say we are just going to, if we have to score 42 points, we're going to try. But this year has gone so sideways from what Mike probably expected and wants that he is put into the box of saying, okay, Kirk, okay, Justin, okay, Dalvin, Adam, let's try and score points.
But they don't have to hold opponents under 24 points, really. In fact, we've gone over all the numbers this week on Purple Daily. When they target, in the 4 games that they target their 3 best weapons the most frequently, Jefferson, Thielen, and Cook, they're averaging 32 points per game. And that magic number is sort of 70%. If they target between handoffs and throws, those 3 guys 70% or more, they are 3-1. The lone loss is a missed 37-yard field goal against the Cardinals, and they're averaging 32 points per game. And so, I'm not saying your defense can be a sieve and you can go about the season and get to where you want to, but there's leeway here. It doesn't need to be, to Judd's point, it doesn't need to be the 2017 formula here where, hey, let's let the defense win these games. I like that Mike Zimmer's kind of coming around on this. I'm curious to see if it's just a couple weeks and if he reverts back. But the fact is, Randy, in 2017, after every single victory, and Case Keenum in every game would have 3 or 4 passes that were sort of 50-50 balls, and he's on the run, he's fading away, and he's just dropping a ball into quadruple coverage or something, and Zimmer would get at the podium every single game, post-game, and he would just lament those throws, right? Our quarterback has to be more conservative. Our quarterback can't take those risks. And now he's the opposite. Now Kirk's the one up at the podium saying, well, I feel like about 5 of those throws were kind of risky, and Zimmer's like, no, they weren't. I don't care. Go throw interceptions. So it's a different tone than we heard in 2017, and it's probably a different tone than we heard in the first month of this season too.
I think this is a real change. I really do, because I was like Judd saying, okay, after the LA Chargers, let's see if you keep it up, and they have. I think they're going to keep doing this aggressive style of offense. What I will say on the Dalvin Tomlinson front is, thankfully, the Vikings have been loaded at defensive tackle. Armon Watts, he played well last week. Sheldon Richardson, he's better against the pass, but okay, he's still a starter for most teams in the league. Mentally, I will say this is a tough football team, the Minnesota Vikings. The fact that every single game comes down to the wire, however they got to stay in games, they do it. Kirk Cousins, he's delivering. He puts this team on his back, especially if the defense lets them down. They're a mentally tough football team. What I will say going up against the Santa Clara 49ers is that they are physical. So it's one thing to be mentally tough. Can you be physically tough against this team on both sides? So on the defensive line, Nick Bosa versus Christian Darrisaw. Man, Christian Darrisaw on Sunday, he got worked. So that's really a concern that I have. Eric Armstead, I'm assuming he's going to go up against Brian O'Neill. They have a nice defensive line. And even on offense, they are tough physically. Kyle Juszczyk, their fullback. George Kittle is a real tight. He's a blocking tight end. He is Mike Zimmer's dream. They have Trent Williams at left tackle. And then when they decide to once in a while line up Deebo Samuel from wide receiver to running back, after all those blocks that you're getting, you have Deebo Samuel running right through that. So they're mentally tough. Can they be physically tough? That's what I need to see. Because and I'm not moving the goalposts here. We'll see what happens these next 7 games. They beat Green Bay. Hey, they can turn their season around. But if they can beat the San Francisco 49ers, the style of football that they play, this is a team that if you don't shed any blocks, if you don't do it, then what's going to happen? They're going to beat the hell out of you for 4 quarters. They're going to run clock the last 3 games. They're top 3 in average time of possession per game, the San Francisco 49ers. If you don't match that intensity, they're going to continue to drain clock, and that's going to put more pressure on Kirk Cousins and the offense to say, okay, we got to score quickly. Not to say that they can't, because every time they're put in that position, they deliver. But if they can beat the 49ers, man, that's going to be really saying something.
Yeah, and they love to run. So San Fran is going to run. But I mean, this is what so what you're describing too, though, is a really interesting example of going back to the 2019 playoff game. That was a game in which the Vikings got their butts kicked by exactly what you're talking about, which is they are going to try and beat you up. And the question is, do you punch them back, or do you say, hold on a second, we didn't sign up for that? And so I love this test, though, for Kirk and this entire team, because like this is a key test. If the Vikings go in there on Sunday and they punch back and go toe to toe, it's going to be another really interesting example of the progress that this team has made in the past month. If they go in there and they score some points, but they're like, okay, hold on a second here, we didn't expect this, right? Like this physical type of game. Oh, whoa. It's gonna be a big step back. So like that's what I don't remember a season, guys, in which it feels like every game is a defining game.
Yeah.
And it's because, it's been so close as well. But like it feels like every game, and this is great, but it feels like every game is like a stage play within itself of another example of, okay, prove this, now prove that, now prove this. And I think you're exactly right. I think Sunday is largely going to be do you think you're tough? Show you're tough.
I think also their schedule has just it's set up to be a test week after week. It's a brutal schedule. On paper it was before the season, and it's mostly held up. A lot of times you get into the actual schedule and it's like, oh, okay, well, those two teams, Dallas, even with a backup quarterback, was formidable. And San Francisco, that looked like an easier game maybe 3 weeks ago, but now they're back to being the team that people thought they were going to be. And I've been arguing with Vikings fans on Twitter shockingly all night tonight. And my main point after these last two wins has been, why shouldn't the bar be Super Bowl at this point? I'm not saying they have a perfectly tuned roster or that their offensive line is amazing or that they're as good as the 98 team or the 09 team, but I'm looking at the NFC. The 1 and the 2 seeds are the Cardinals and the Packers. Well, you just beat the Packers. You basically beat the Cardinals, make a damn 37-yard field goal, right? Everybody else, Tampa Bay still scares me the most because Tom Brady, they also, when they're healthy, they have great offensive and defensive lines. And so that's, I still think Tampa Bay is the cream of the crop in the NFC. Dallas is really good, but Dallas has also melted down most of the last 25 years, and they're not exactly like a proven force in the playoffs. The Rams have sputtered lately. There's a lot of imperfect teams in the NFC, and the Vikings have already shown that they can punch with the top 2 seeds in the NFC. So why shouldn't we hold this team to a bar that says, make a run? Like, it's your 8th year with Mike Zimmer. Kirk Cousins is in his prime. You got weapons all over the place on offense. Like I said, there's a bunch of question marks in the NFC. It's kind of staring at you right now to make a run the rest of the regular season and do some damage in the playoffs, Randy. That's my thought.
Well, my position has always been NFC Championship game or bust this season. That's been my position from the beginning, even going back to the offseason. It's been too long. It's time to put up or shut up. And the Vikings are now in a position where they can control their own destiny. And that's what really scares me, because every single time the Vikings are right now, they're the 6th seed if the playoffs started right now. Mm-hmm. Every time they're in this position, something stupid just happens. But I'm going to put that to the side and say this season is this season. Last week against Green Bay was really interesting. The offensive line, I think really the only good offensive lineman that played last week was Ezra Cleveland. He was the one guy that was delivering on the run blocking, especially for Dalvin Cook in that touchdown run that he had. Everybody else, Mason Cole, we saw why I said I don't trust him long term. With Garrett Bradbury, it would have been no different. In fact, it probably would have been worse. Christian Darrisaw, he got worked. Brian O'Neill, he didn't play well, but Kirk Cousins was still decisive with his passes. So knowing that information and seeing the pressure come to your face left and right against this team, San Francisco, I want to say, Judd, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the average time in the quarterback's head to get the ball out is 3 seconds? 1 Mississippi, 2, 3. Yeah. Against a team like San Francisco, I'm going to say dial it down to two and a half, because Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead, there's some gangsters. They're going to come out and they're going to make Kirk Cousins feel those hits. But you're right, man. It's enough. It's 8 years. I'm tired of, okay, they can still get it and we can depend on if they can beat San Francisco, that's the tiebreaker right there. So if we're battling out for the 7th seed, okay, the Vikings, they have the tiebreaker over the 49ers. Nah, man, let's get after it. This team should be blowing the tops off of every single defense that they play. And for the last 2 games, they've been doing that. There's no excuse, man. No team is perfect. Things aren't going to go 100% the way that you expected every single time. There's no more excuses for this team. I think I'm not going to sit here and have the conviction to say anything that this team, they're back, they're prime, baby. But I think this one switch that Mike Zimmer has flipped, it really gives them a much better shot to make some noise this year.
Do you think too? So the one thing that really intrigues me here, so it's like each week the games are huge, at least it feels that way, and there's like a bunch of things, key things, right? Like that we're trying to see. And here's my thing for this game, off of your point that the pressure is going to be coming, and like, yeah, you're right. It's not like the line is, oh my God, they're playing so well now and they're pass protecting perfectly. And Kirk's done a great job, and I give Kirk credit, and Kirk has gone through good streaks before. But so here's what intrigues me though. Post game on Sunday, to Phil's point, Kirk openly talked about, I made some throws there. We'd prefer really not to make those throws. Like we'd rather like redo those routes and cut down on the potential mistakes. And it was, whoever is pulling the strings, it's very clear it's not Kirk. Like Kirk has the talent to, and he's being told to, but he's not. Kirk's not like, you know what, boys, let's cut things loose. And if I make mistakes, great. So what I want to see, especially in a game like this, where the pressure is going to be coming, is does Kirk have the ability to continue to do what he did against the Packers, which is, quite frankly, make some risky throws, scary throws. But if you're throwing it to Jefferson, it's worth the risk. The late throw to Thielen, which could have been picked off, it could have been housed, was worth the risk. And then Kirk's like, I really didn't like that throw. And I'm like, oh, Kirk, no, hold on a second. That's the throw that you can make. So with the pressure dialed up and a defense that is going to be in your face, I really want to see Kirk now be told we got to do it again against a team like this to see how he responds and what he does.
Can I say real quick that I feel like this risky throw thing has gone like 5 steps too far. That, like, and even Mike Zimmer is kind of perpetuating it. It's not about throwing interceptable passes to me. It's about throwing the ball more in the intermediate area of the field. And just to bust out the numbers again, Kirk was 3rd from the bottom heading into last week for the season in average depth of throw. His average throw traveled 6.5 yards in the air. So I don't need, like, listen, if Justin Jefferson's open 40 yards down the field, awesome. Boom. Hit him and put a big play on the board. I'm talking about working like 10 to 15, 10 to 20 yards in the air. They don't need to be 50-50 balls. It doesn't need to be triple coverage. It just needs to be something deeper than a swing pass to Alex Madison or a dump off over the middle to Conklin. Like, how about Justin Jefferson, 11 yards in the air with some room to run, right? Like, it doesn't have to be that, oh, he's got to take risks 15 times per game now. It's like, no, just like throw the ball 10 yards down the field and find your best weapons. And by the way, same goes for Kubiak. Scheme these types of plays so that you can take advantage of the intermediate part of the field.
And just quickly, too, the thing about what Kirk did against the Packers, and we talk about this because Mike says, hey, if he gets picked, he gets picked. And Kirk says, I made throws I didn't like. The reality of
so scary.
Right. But the reality of that game, guys, is very simple. And we, at the time back then, we never would have had this discussion. That was as close to any game. Go back and pull the film, 98 Cunningham Moss Carter game, as you will get. And we never talked about Randall Cunningham made some very dangerous throws.
That was
there,
awfully
yeah,
dangerous.
I don't know if I would have thrown that ball to Moss. Or
Be
I don't
careful.
know. The Thielen pass, which was classified in the scorebook as a short pass, was a Chris Carter special. Like Chris Carter caught that ball all the time. So this is not some revelation of, oh, Kirk Cousins has gone out of his mind crazy. What this is, though, is them expressing, I don't know if we should have done that. But the definitive answer, without any question, is, oh no, you should have. You need to.
It's funny. That catch that Adam Thielen made on the sidelines where Rasul Douglas just had a brain fart. It's, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it the Packers versus the Cardinals a few weeks back where AJ Green turned around and just, when Kyler Murray threw the ball to him, he could have made a play on the ball, but he didn't. Was that against Green Bay?
In the end zone.
It's funny how that came full circle.
Game.
It's funny how it came full circle because it was in their favor against Arizona, and then it came back to bite them in the ass against Minnesota.
Good point.
But Kirk Cousins is that quarterback. He needs a pat on the back, which is why I think it's crucial. I think it's really says a lot that Mike Zimmer gave him an attaboy. I want you to be aggressive here. I want you to trust your receivers. And Clint Kubiak, his play calling has been exceptional. There was not that long ago we were saying, all right, dude, you should be fired. You're in way over your head here. But everything is coming along right for this quarterback, even though the offensive line has not been great. But I think because of the support system that he has with his head coach now, where he's publicly embracing this guy, where that goes against everything that Mike Zimmer has ever done. He's like, oh, just handle the offense. I don't care. Oh, I just care about my defense. But now that he's publicly supporting his quarterback, I think it speaks volumes.
I don't know if you guys had a chance, probably not because I think it just came out tonight, but part 2 of Tom Brady's Man in the Arena. They're doing this amazing series on ESPN Plus.
I gotta watch part 1. It's awesome.
So part 2 came out tonight, and it was all about the second Super Bowl title and some of the tough decisions, like Bill Belichick cut Lawyer Malloy, and they got smoked by the Bills in Week 1, and Lawyer Malloy was with the Bills in Week 1. So there was all these questions still about, did Belichick ruin the locker room because they weren't the dynasty Patriots yet, but then they shifted from there to Brady and Belichick's relationship blossoming and that carrying over into the locker room, and how all the way back to the early 2000s, those guys would spend a huge chunk of time every Tuesday. They wouldn't wait till Thursday. They would do it on Tuesday, and they would sit down in Bill's office. Yeah, on a day off.
Quarterbacks help game plan if you trust them.
And so they would sit down. They would look at film. They would talk strategy, and that's something that you wonder. Well, why? There's a million different reasons why the Patriots became the greatest, football team in history over a 20-year stretch, but I think a big one is the quarterback and the coach being on the same page from day one, and a great defensive-minded coach with those championship Giants teams in the 80s that built a relationship with his quarterback, his 23-year-old quarterback in the early 2000s. And I will always say this, as hard as I am on Kirk, and as much as I think that, Kirk tends to melt in the biggest moments. He's been good this season. He's never really had that type of relationship. But if Mike is finally giving that to him after 4 years, and all right, we can do 45 minutes on Thursdays, maybe some of that is carrying over. Maybe Kirk having his best season as a Viking is not a coincidence. Maybe it's a product of those conversations with Zimmer, and maybe there's a few things here and there that are preventing a turnover or are leading to a game-winning drive that wouldn't have happened 2 years ago. So we can criticize Zimmer for not building that relationship more 3 or 4 years ago, but maybe we are seeing some of that payoff now that he's finally discovered how to build a connection with the guy.
Yeah, and at this point, especially with Kellen Mond just being inactive all the time, you have to think, what is the plan here? Because Kirk Cousins, I wouldn't even mind if the Vikings if they kept Kirk Cousins beyond this season. I know we flirted with the idea that, okay, they could trade him after this season, save a ton of cap, but what else would you have? The way he's playing right now, it's just whatever you have behind door number 2, you better be right. The only hesitation I have here is that, okay, Mike Zimmer, he's doing great, and he's embracing his quarterback, and he's supporting him, and that's fantastic. Clint Kubiak. Okay. About every other year, we go through the offensive coordinator carousel. Clint Kubiak, you think he's going to turn down any head coaching offers out of sheer loyalty? No. He's gonna go for it like every offensive coordinator does. It's not like Bill Belichick with Josh McDaniels. I don't see that happening. So if he goes, I like the fact that Mike Zimmer is saying go for the win, go for the win. But everything they're doing schematically essentially walks out with Clint Kubiak, and you have to say, okay, we have to start over again. That's the only real, I guess, concern that I have moving forward after this season. Obviously, there's 7 games left, and they can turn their season around. But Kirk Cousins, man, if they kept him beyond this season, I wouldn't even be mad about it.
Can you guys see him hoisting a Super Bowl trophy? Like, can you envision confetti falling on Kirk Cousins' head?
Oh, absolutely not. No way. No, we're in the middle of what has been. I feel like to get to where we are right now has been pulling teeth. Like it's been and that's not Kirk's fault, but it's been pulling.
Don't be pulling those pearly white teeth out of Kirk's mouth.
People have had to bend and contort their beliefs of football in ways that I've never seen before. This is
just to be 5-5.
This is Mike trying to save Mike's job, and somebody clearly talked to Mike, and things have changed, and so, but here's where I am optimistic, and I keep saying this, and this is what I really am excited about, and I think it's the most important thing, with or without Kirk, but let's just say it's with Kirk. Can you imagine with the personnel components, skill position-wise, and Irv Smith is coming back at some point here, can you imagine if you got a real offensive, and I'm saying good one, offensive mind here, what you've got? Like, this is a powder keg. Like we basically are like found the sparklers and stuff, and we're like, oh, this is so cool. Look at our sparklers. Look at this. Look at that. And like, you've got a fireworks show in your garage that you don't know how to do it. That's what Jefferson, Cook, Thielen, potentially Kirk too, Irv Smith. Like if you've got a Sean McVay savant type who's like, all right, it's go time now. Like, we're excited, and I don't blame us. I am not faulting fans one bit. But Jefferson lines up in the backfield, and I geek out too. I'm like, he's lined up in the backfield. What's he gonna like? Think about that. A veteran savvy football offensive coach would be like, Judd, calm the bleep down. I could do like 18 different things with that.
It is amazing how, because we just haven't seen aggressive offense or offensive innovation here, that like we're all just like the last 2 weeks, everyone is just like, holy crap, oh my God, look at what this team can do.
Randy, have you seen what they're doing? Yeah. Jefferson was in the backfield. Oh my God.
But the other trap that we tend to fall into here, watching this team year after year, is they go on these little runs and it's like, yeah, here it is. Like, they've figured it out. And then there's always like a door number 2 where like you open the door and you just fall into like, it's like a Bond movie. Like the trap door opens and they lose to the Bears or something in a game that they're not supposed to. Like, they need to avoid those, right? Like, they didn't win the Super Bowl. You know, Cheesehead TV, our guy Aaron Nagler was chiding the soulless franchise, the Vikings, for celebrating your midseason Super Bowl. But it's like, yeah, it was definitely an overly emotional reaction by a sad Packers fan. But there's some truth in it, in that the Vikings have never won a Super Bowl, and sometimes we celebrate the comeback against the Broncos. See, look now, like Kirk daggered the Broncos down by 20 a couple of years ago. Or look at Judd, why don't you say you were wrong? Look what happened against the Packers. It's like, well, the great teams, which is what the bar should be, right? Can you be a great team that can win a Super Bowl? That performance against the Packers and that win against the Chargers, they do that like 8 or 9 times a year, right? It's just it's a recurring thing for the best teams, the Chiefs, what the Rams have been for the better part of the last few years. You rack up 11, 12, 13 wins in the regular season instead of sneaking in with 8, 9, or 10. That's what I want to see in the second half of this season.
See, I don't even know if the masses of Vikings fans looked at that game last Sunday and said, okay, that's our Super Bowl. I think we were all ecstatic because that was a big win against an NFC North opponent. Mm-hmm. The Vikings needed that. Otherwise, they would have went down to, they were 4-5. They would have went down to 4-6. So, you needed that win. That was a huge win. And the way that they did it, where it's like, okay, Justin Jefferson, are we looking at, not saying that he is, but I mean, if there's anyone that comes close to a baby Moss, is this really what we have right here? That's why we're excited. But going to can the Vikings, the one thing that I always stay kind of cautiously optimistic about, or I guess kind of have my guard up a little bit, is the hope factor. Because every single time when you say, oh my God, I can trust this team again. Look at this. Everything's going great. Something dumb always happens. And you sit there looking at yourself like, why did I do this? Again? Really? But on the idea, can Kirk Cousins, can he hoist the Lombardi trophy and confetti and all that stuff? I'm honestly at the point now, I've been following this team for 21 years. I started in 2000. They lost to the Giants in the NFC Championship game, 41 donut. 2009, even though the Saints cheated, whatever. 2017 NFC Championship game. 2015 wide left. I've seen this enough times that until I see the Vikings actually win the championship and I come back from my out-of-body experience, I won't believe. I need to see it to believe it first.
Yeah, and that's completely fair. And I just don't think, like, there are things about this team that I like. And I think if they do the future right, it's bright. Like, and I don't think that includes Mike. I just don't. I think it includes an offensive coach. I think it includes a change of a coach that knows how to embrace the entire game and team. Like, I mean, Mike's defensive guys love Mike, and that's great. But we kid, but it really is a problem that he has expended so much of his career here, basically being like, I'm going to go get my defense rebuilt. The other thing to keep in mind too, and we're not discussing this because they've won 2 consecutive games, and quite frankly, it's fun to watch them score points. But what we're not discussing too is this rebuilt defense through attrition and guys being hurt and guys just not being as good as we thought. Currently in yards, which I know is not the biggest thing, but it's still, if it's bad, that's not good. They are 28th. They are 28th, and they're 22nd in points, which is, and we had talked about, for this team to reach what they wanted to, that they probably, had to get back to close to the top 10, if not solidly in the top 10. 28th and 22nd is not great. And so we probably are trying to ignore that. But when Mike had built the whole thing of, we're going to go sign guys, and we're not going to sign a guard because we got Pierce, we're going to get Tomlinson too, and we're going to get this and that. That defense is a problem. And when Rodgers comes down, and I know he's great and he's fantastic, but when he comes down in the second half in your building and literally picks you apart. And we didn't talk about this, but the post-game Patrick Peterson quote, and boy, is he smooth. God, is he a pro's pro. I love to hear that guy talk. But when somebody said that last touchdown, which was, of course, the one play, one drive touchdown, and Patrick Peterson's like, we got really aggressive. And somebody tried to push him on, like, oh, yeah, say more. And he's like, I'm not going to say anything more. We just got really aggressive. That was not a player thing. He was saying Mike. Mike thought that Mike knew best. And I don't think Peterson, 1, suffers fools, or 2, buys into things he does not like. But that was a very interesting, telling quote to say, basically, we bit off far more than we could chew at a time when we probably shouldn't have done that, because that's what I heard.
Maybe there was a mad geniusness behind it, though, because if Rodgers is going to score anyways, you might as well let it happen right away. Give yourself two
But he prides himself on stopping him.
timeouts.
He prides himself on stopping him, not allowing him to score.
But there's a certain, I'm not saying that that's what happened, but you're going to have to flip the way that you think if you're Zimmer going forward, and that your defense is going to give up a touchdown in that spot to Aaron Rodgers. So your thinking should be, let's try and stop him and pray to God that he throws a pick or something, but let's make sure that if he scores, there's at least 45 seconds on the clock so we can go down and kick a field goal. Like, he's going to have to think more like that than he ever has in his entire career.
If they give up points, yes, but I think they were at like what, the 20 or something, 25?
Probably the 25. Yeah, I think it was a 75-yard touchdown.
That was going to be like you'd like to have some success there.
Well, Xavier Woods, he gave up, I want to say, goodness, of those 4 touchdowns, I want to say he gave up at least 2. He may have given up 3 of those. But this defense is shot to hell. And not only that, with the amount of players that are on 1-year deals, this is just maybe it is sustainable. I was about to say it's not sustainable, but the defense possibly not being as great next year, maybe it is sustainable being that. But at the same time, this offense is what this team, if they're going to win anything, is on this offense. It's not sustainable if you lose your offensive coordinator and you have to rebuild the defense all over again and say, okay, we're going to maintain the same offense that we had in 21, but also our defense is going to be better now. I just feel like, and this goes into maybe a broader, I guess, take that I have. I just look at Robert Saleh in New York with the Jets. I just feel like it's better long-term for a team to have an offensive-minded coach than a defensive-minded coach. Now, Robert Saleh, he's in his first year with New York, so give him time. But at the same time, if you're going to have a defensive-minded head coach outside of Bill Belichick, why? Because he can have guys like Josh McDaniels to basically be his consistent OC. And obviously, it doesn't hurt to have the GOAT quarterback, Tom Brady. But besides that, you just need so many things to go right for you. Whereas if you have the same quarterback and the same offense, and maybe you interchange a couple of receivers once in a while, that's going to give you longer success versus a defensive-minded head coach. Because if you have a guy like Xavier Rhodes in 2017 that goes from a bona fide shutdown corner to then, okay, he's finished, it changes everything. So I think after this season, unless they get to the NFC Championship game, I just don't see how you can move forward with him coming back.
It's amazing, man. This team is a gravitational pull toward 500. Kirk Cousins has been throughout his career. You know, the Vikings, I think since the Wilfs took over, are averaging 8.5 wins per season over the last, 16 seasons. And here we are again. They're 5-5. They have a chance to be much better than 500 just looking at their schedule. But everything always sort of tracks toward a really difficult decision. Like, well, it wasn't a train wreck where we're going to fire everyone. But do we want greatness? Can we achieve it with the current collection? And we're kind of headed toward the same thing as we go into December here. Judd, let's shout out our friends at Surly Brewing Company here, helping us stay hydrated and helping us have fun over the holiday weekend.
You mean the beer that they've got right here? Surly Furious IPA. Thanksgiving is coming up. And you know what that means? Doesn't mean turkey. Forget the turkey. Cranberries, yeah, whatever. Stuffing, do what you want. But Surly Furious on the table, you darn right. Exactly right.
All of that food is just a base for the Surly.
Exactly right. It is. If you don't have this sitting on your Thanksgiving Day table, then what are you doing, huh? Football and Surly, especially Furious, is fantastic. In fact, I want you to, on Thursday, take a picture with that phone. Take a picture with that phone at Jay Zolgan on Twitter. What should they do, guys?
Show us your cans. That's right. Exactly. Show us your cans.
Yep, exactly.
Hey, a shout out to Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They're all about risk management. We're trying to tell the Vikings, no, throw caution to the wind. Screw risk. Just throw the ball on the field.
And Zim's like, I'm getting Federated.
Yeah, Zim's like, actually, Kirk's like, I'm going to get Federated. Zim's like, no, you don't need insurance. But Federated's here to help business owners with risk management, bottom line protection, protecting your employees. They've been around for over 100 years. They're based in Owatonna, Minnesota. They are one of us, and you can find them online at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. For the record, Football Outsiders has the Vikings defense at 13th in DVOA, which accounts for the context of the yards. So now that also, I think, accounts for the fact that they built that. I think that was a top 10 unit with Danielle Hunter fully healthy. So anything they did defensively with Danielle Hunter probably has to be thrown out the window. It's like they're going to have to scheme differently. It's going to be a major rotation. Hell, Sheldon Richardson was playing a lot of left defensive end in that game on Sunday, and he was very effective. So, Randy, are you going to make it out to the game? I know you swore off going to that game when they were just garbage a few weeks ago, but I mean, now it's interesting.
No, I'm not going to go. My mom is flying out here tomorrow to the Bay Area, so I'm going to hang out with her and my stepfather. And quite honestly, I used to work in Silicon Valley, Bowers Avenue. The traffic down there is absolutely ridiculous when it's not game day. So now that it is going to be game day, I just can't do it. I just can't do it, man. So I'm going to hang out. I'm going to watch the game at home where I have my own bathroom to myself, 10 feet away.
That's a major factor.
Yeah,
Really
huge
is,
factor.
HD TV. I have my own food. I have all that stuff. And all I got to do is roll out of bed and walk downstairs. I'm super good.
It's a beautiful thing.
That's
Skull Gaming says Judd's blood type is Surly Furious IPA. Yeah.
Oh, look, it's red. Nothing wrong with that.
Right now, by the way, the sports books mostly have this game at -3 San Francisco, so the Niners as 3-point favorites. There's a few that have it at 3.5. Right now, it looks like 62% of the money is on the Vikings for this game. 54% of the bets are on the Vikings here too. I don't know. That's tough. I think I would probably love to jump on the Vikings and get the 3 points there, but it kind of I do wonder what this spread would have looked like a couple weeks back. Maybe there's some overreaction here because the Niners have won their last 2 games by 20 points each. I think it's like 30-10 in both those games, but that's how Vegas sees it. Niners as a slight home favorite, 3 points, boys.
That's probably fair.
Yeah. Randy, any final thoughts from you going into a game where the Vikings can pull above 500 for the first time all season?
I'm just going to sit back and watch it. I can't have any expectations because every time where it's okay, everything's lined up for the Vikings to take over, control their own destiny. Look how far they've come from how they've started this season. They've won their last 2 games in such terrific fashion. Everybody feels great. I'm going to sit back and watch. Now, if they beat the Niners, I think that's when I'm going to shake my ass for this team.
Seriously?
Somebody just said in the comments that they would get a Kirk Cousins tattoo on their ass if the Vikings win the Super Bowl. Will you go that far, Randy? Will you get a Kirk Cousins tattoo on your ass?
Yeah, temporary one.
You like that?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll do that.
No, I'm not doing that for anybody.
Well, the tattoo artist shouts "You like that" the entire time they're drawing on you.
No. That all sounds like a really bad idea. That sounds like a terrible idea.
Just a little peel off sticker.
But I mean, this team. So
And I'll put it on myself.
Yeah.
the thing with this team though is like making the playoffs now should be just totally like expected, right? I mean, there's
standard.
7 seeds now. That 7 seed is not going to be a great team. So like, it's not like 2 or 3 years back where, oh my God, you got the 6 seed, you snuck in, right? Now it's like there's 7 seeds. So my expectation when this year started was really high. And so
same.
I'm not, so I have found this year to be extremely interesting. And as I said before, every game is like its own little play, which I actually do enjoy. But I'm not buying in until I see like a playoff run. Because like this to me is not like this feel good. Oh, I didn't expect them to be good, and now they're good. Like it's not that. It's I expected you to be good. You got off to, a bad start. The other thing quickly too is this league among all sports, this league especially evens itself out, right? Like for all we talked about, well, they missed the field goal against the Cardinals and that cost them, and bad luck there. Cincinnati, bad luck there. You know what? The Packers game, they got some good luck, but that's this league. If the Packers safety doesn't drop the ball, Packers probably win, but that's just this league. It's not like this whole thing of, well, the Vikings deserve to lose that game. No, it's just a weird league based on a play here or a play there. And so this whole thing of like, it's been bad luck and the Vikings are getting screwed is offset by, well, the Packers probably got screwed too, but who cares? The Vikings won the game.
Yeah, they're getting hot at the right time, the Vikings are. It's not so much how you start the season, but when you get hot at the right time where, we're past the mid-season point, if they can beat the Niners, that's going to be really good. Darnell Savage could have had about 3 interceptions in that game on Sunday. Rasul Douglas, he could have had 1. So, sure, yeah, you could say that about every team. If this went well, or if this play happened, or this play, that's just the NFL. I've seen this enough times that until I see this team actually win the whole thing, I'm always going to be in the back of my head saying, okay, what's going to happen next? I don't know.
I just want to throw this out there that beating the Packers opened the door a sliver for the division. Just a sliver. They're still 2.5 games back, but they have a game against the Packers still, so they have to win that. The Packers have to play a rested Rams team this weekend off a bye, and the Rams are coming off an embarrassing, I think 2 embarrassing losses. And so the Rams will have spent 2 weeks off a bye preparing. The Packers have a banged up Rodgers who can barely walk, it sounds like, with that toe injury. So if the Packers lose that game, the Packers also have to play at the Ravens on December 19th. So I'm just saying, just
what's going to help the Packers is
you're building it up.
Just throwing it out there.
Their bye is coming up, so that's going to help them rest.
Congratulations.
But they do have a lot of guys hurt. Like they do have a lot of guys hurt who aren't coming back. So
and via Tankathon, the Vikings have the easiest schedule remaining in the division. They actually have the 25th easiest schedule, but that's because they have the Lions and the Bears still twice that account for that. But the Packers are 20th. So getting healthy,
the Packers still have games against the Bears and the Lions as well.
Correct.
And the Browns, and that's not a gimme game, but the Packers get the Browns at Lambeau Field on Christmas, and the Browns look very train wrecky going into December, which is kind of hilarious. It's too bad. They had like one good season. Now they're just like back to looking for a quarter. They're going to be looking for a quarterback.
Phil's right about that. I don't know why, but I just enjoy the Browns should suck.
Baker Mayfield is just like lashing out.
Put in Casey.
The world, they actually might too.
Put in Casey.
I think they might put in Casey.
Casey and I are friends.
If January 2nd comes down to Vikings Packers playing for the NFC North Division, that's going to be too wild for me.
Let's get it.
Randy's like, I can't watch
LFG, right?
Because it's just setting up for the ultimate letdown. But maybe they could win.
They won
this
that game,
could be
Randy.
different than other years.
Zimmer won.
I don't know.
Won that game in 15, right?
Dude, if that game if the Packers open the door, the Vikings walk through on
Didn't the
December
Vikings
2nd.
win there?
Damn right.
I don't remember.
Teddy in
2015.
Yes,
In 2015,
they
they
did.
won that game.
Well, they
in
won,
Lambeau.
but they won it at home in 2012, right? Did they win it at home? Week 17.
Yeah, they won that. That was
No,
just
they
to
got
get
into the play.
That was just to
They
get
got
into
in the playoffs. The
But
Packers won the division.
The 2015 game was for the division in
Yeah.
Lambeau on Sunday Night Football
Yeah.
before Blair Walsh.
Teddy threw
Don't
a
open the
pass.
door.
I
Don't
mean,
open
but
the
you know,
door.
the expectations weren't quite there in 2015 like they are right now.
It's true.
So the build up
somebody-
is what kills me.
Well, let's get to this real quick here too. That because there are rumors, and the press was asking Matt Nagy that there's a
Yeah, he's
report
gone.
that it's been decided that he will be fired on Friday because it's just it is hard to fire someone when you have a Thursday night game and it's like you have to the travel and the game planning. It's not the right week to overthrow things. But what if the Bears just like beat the brakes off the Lions 41-3? Do you still fire Nagy on Friday? I mean, he's not the guy, but like, can you fire him if they're going to beat the Lions probably?
If I'm the Vikings, I beg them not to fire him.
Yeah, you'd rather them not get the jolt right before you play them
that's
2
true.
times, right?
You
That's kind of
do not-
unfortunate.
Oh man, that short-term high, new guy. You don't want that smoke.
I'm just
man.
trying to see like, is there any way so the Vikings don't play the Bears for another month? There's no way that dude hangs on for another month, right?
Right.
They've kept them around this long. So
It's true.
until they actually fire him, because he's given Chicago every reason to fire him in the first place, and they still just trot along and say, no, it's going to be all right.
So they're
Well,
by the way, they're probably going to lose. Like the Lions have come so close to winning a game this year. Like this is probably the game Lions. But if they do get by the Lions and say, all right, one more week, then they have to play the Cardinals at Green Bay before they play the Vikings. So
Maybe Colt
Yeah.
McCoy.
So
Look out.
the one thing about that too, though, is and this might not be the norm, but it's going to have to become acceptable. If you get in as the last seed, you still have to at least consider firing the coach if you don't like to look at things. Like it's not like you're a playoff team. Like the 6th seed, it's like, okay, the coach saved his job, right?
Yeah.
The Bears would have been very wise at the end of last year to be like, okay, 7th seed, that was great. Matt, you're fired.
If I had.
Yeah, I just
And
think it's
that's
hilarious
why-
that like fire Nagy chants are breaking out at Bulls games now and stuff.
Oh, his kids' football, his kids' high school
That too.
football game.
That too, I know.
That's great,
That
too.
Fire Nagy.
Just wants to watch his son play, man.
Yeah.
Let him have
Poor guy.
peace. Leave him alone.
Really?
Was he at the
Oh.
game? Was he at the game they were chanting that?
From
Or
what
did
I
they-
read, he was at the
Oh
game.
God, that's
Yeah.
terrible, dude. And his son's just on the sidelines.
What's so terrible
Oh,
about
my
it? These
God.
poor people have to watch this crap.
Well,
agree
it's a
with
high
that.
school football game for his kid, dude.
And you
Can't
know
they
what?
just-
His kid can go do something else.
I
Go
agree.
do band. They're not gonna. They're not going to chant. Fire
Do you-
your
like, does
dad if
Nagy
you're
show up-
playing the French horn.
Does Nagy go like on a date on a Tuesday night to Olive Garden with his wife?
Just show
And
up in a
Olive Garden
disguise.
breaks out in a
Yeah.
fire Nagy chant too.
Well, you know
Where-
what? Don't blame people if they do.
And Nagy living in Chicago going to Olive Garden would be very on brand for the terribleness that is Matt Nagy. So I hope he actually does do that.
Just wear a wig, a mustache, some shades, no matter where
Yeah,
you
dress
go.
up like Mike.
No one will know
Ditka.
who he is. Yeah.
Great.
Olive Garden is delicious,
Sweater
you guys,
vest.
and if you don't enjoy the
Hey.
bottomless,
They want to
soup and
sponsor
salad
Score North programming.
Ooh.
I'll be there every week.
and
Yeah, that's fine.
breadsticks, greatest breadsticks. Oh my
Great.
god!
Listen, we will rave about Olive Garden all day long
I'd
if they want
damn
to
right.
jump
actually
on board.
like
Oh, I was about to say, are they your sponsors? That's why I didn't
Let's
say
get it.
anything.
Not yet.
no,
It's a
but
wise
I mean,
man.
Declan-
A wise
They're
man.
not that great.
Yeah. All right, boys.
You guys
We gotta, as Patrick Royce
I'm
would
done.
say, we gotta go. You can check out Realistic Randy's YouTube channel. Just search Realistic Randy. And if you are enjoying the Vikings 2-game win streak, click the like button on this particular episode and the subscribe button, and we'll give you daily Vikings entertainment and therapy in return. All right, boys. 5-5, home stretch time. Enjoy your Turkey Day. And we'll see you guys for
Yeah, have a good one.
Vikings Vent Line on Sunday, right after Vikings Niners is over.